here to give you that express pass to really getting what's going on behind the headlines. Today is September 8th, 2025, and we've gathered a stack of sources. Diario El Mundo, Diario El Salvador, El Diario de Hoy, El Blog, and La Prensa Gráfica. Our goal, simple. Cut through the noise, give you the context, the key insights, and maybe those surprising facts from El Salvador that help you feel genuinely informed.
Yeah, we're aiming to connect the dots for you.
Exactly. We'll be looking at, everything from the economy and environmental pressures, which seem really linked right now, to big shifts in security, social changes, political moves, and even culture and international ties. It's quite a mix.
It really is, a whole landscape.
Before we dive into all that, just a quick message for you. News El Salvador SV ad read, September 8, 2025. Welcome to News El Salvador SD in this space for conversation and reflection, where we explore together scientific, social, environmental, political, economic, and statistical topics, as well as current events in El Salvador and around the world, with fluid and easily understandable intellectual curiosity. News El Salvador SV ad read. Each episode comments on and breaks down key events that help us better understand the reality around us. Find us for free on YouTube Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Deezer, or other platforms. News El Salvador SV ad read. Find us on PayPal with the username PayPal2025-186. Write it all together, PayPal 2025-186. Remember, your contributions help pay bills so we can provide content. News El Salvador SV ad read. We are News El Salvador SV. Follow us, share, and comment. Okay, let's get into it. First big theme, this close link between the economy and the environment we're seeing in today's news. The Diario El Mundo kicks us off with the pretty stark headline sugar production for 2024-2025. It's hit a 10-year low.
Wow, 10 years.
Yeah, and the reason they give is too much rain right at the end of last winter. Made fertilization impossible, apparently.
And that just hammers home how vulnerable parts of the economy are to, climate shifts, doesn't it? A staple crop like sugar taking such a hit. It really raises questions about resilience, maybe diversification needs.
And it's not just past rain. El Diario de Hoy and El Blog are reporting today about a tropical wave bringing more rain, more storms.
Right now, yeah.
Leading to immediate problems, falling trees, people actually trapped in cars. It makes it very real, not just a statistic.
Absolutely. It shows these aren't abstract, long-term things. They're happening now, impacting safety, daily life.
And it's not only about too much water in some cases. La Prensa Gráfica points to something else. Water consumption in the San Salvador metropolitan area, the AMSS, it's dropped dramatically, like 60% over the last 4 decades, from 42 cubic meters per service per month down to just 17.3.
60%, that's huge.
It really is. So what does that signal for you? Resource management, daily life.
Well, it's kind of a classic double-edged sword, isn't it? On one hand, maybe it's successful conservation efforts. That would be great.
That's the optimistic take.
Right. But the other side could be growing scarcity, or maybe infrastructure problems just limiting access. The sources don't spell out the why, but either way, it's a massive shift in how people interact with a basic resource. And this happens while El Diario de Hoy points out the basic food basket cost is, and I quote, through the roof.
Yeah, I saw that phrase.
Making it unaffordable for 3 out of 10 Salvadorans. So there's pressure on water, pressure on food costs. It's a tough picture for many households, real struggles.
It is. But amidst all that, there are these glimmers of optimism too. Diario El Mundo found that nearly 63% of micro and small businesses, the MIPAs, they have good expectations for this quarter.
Okay, interesting contrast.
And Diario El Salvador goes further, saying confidence in the government is actually driving investment in the eastern part of the country. They even mention a project inspired by Santorini.
Santorini, wow. Okay, so that duality is key then. You've got these undeniable pressures, environmental, cost of living hitting people hard.
Definitely.
But at the same time, there's this narrative of growth, of development, especially it seems, where people perceive government stability. It makes you wonder how these different realities coexist and who's feeling which one more, you know?
Right, and speaking of investment, kind of a unique one, El Diario de Hoy mentioned Legeo, putting $4.2 million towards Bitcoin City.
Yes. That certainly signals a distinctive direction for national investment. Very forward-looking, or at least very different.
Okay, so from the economy, let's pivot to security and the social shifts. The sources here paint a really compelling, maybe complicated picture. Diario El Salvador leads with some very positive reports. Families reuniting in places like Apapa. The canton of El Platano are apparently resurging from the stigma of gangs.
That's powerful language, resurging.
It is. And they attribute this directly to President Bukele's security strategy, the one started back in March 2022. They even note, get this, the 6th day in a row without any homicides.
6 days. That's undeniably a significant statistic, and you can imagine the relief in those communities, the impact on daily life. It's tangible.
Absolutely.
However, El Diario de Hoy offers a very different perspective. They state pretty bluntly that the poor are poorer with the regime, and they link worsening poverty to things like overcrowding, illiteracy, unemployment.
So a critical counterpoint.
Exactly. It forces you to ask, are the security gains truly holistic? Or are we seeing progress in one area, like homicides, while other deep-seated social and economic problems persist or even worsen? It's about overall well-being, not just one metric.
Definitely presents a more nuanced reality. We also see reports of specific actions. Diario El Salvador mentions a 10-year sentence for an MS, Mara Salvatrucha, collaborator.
Okay, ongoing enforcement.
And La Prensa Gráfica reports an MS-13 member wanted for homicide was handed over to El Salvador. So clear actions against gang structures.
Right.
But, and here's the other side again. La Prensa Gráfica also calculated that 18 thefts and robberies happened every single day over the last year.
18 a day. Okay.
So for you, the listener, what does that tell you about the day-to-day feeling of safety beyond the big homicide numbers?
Well, it suggests that while maybe the large-scale organized violence is down, that everyday crime, the kind that makes people feel unsafe walking down the street or in their homes, that might still be a very real, persistent problem.
A different kind of insecurity.
Precisely. Dismantling the big gangs is one thing, but addressing the root causes of theft and robbery often requires broader social and economic solutions. And the sources touch on other vulnerabilities too. El Diario de Hoy mentioning the stigma faced by rural women in domestic work, or that story about the fired professor selling coffee.
Yeah, that was poignant. Underscores that economic precarity is still very present for some.
Definitely.
And then there's this international piece affecting people directly. An attorney warns in El Diario de Hoy that even permanent residents in the U.S. risk deportation now.
Oof. That adds another layer of anxiety, doesn't it? Especially for the diaspora, impacting families, communities, even those who thought they were secure.
A really significant challenge for Salvadorans abroad.
Okay,
let's shift again, this time to the political dynamics and El Salvador's place in the wider world.
right.
Diario El Mundo brings up something interesting. Apparently, some organizations are deciding not to register in this foreign agents registry.
Oh, why is that?
Because they function mainly with volunteers, they argue they don't fit the criteria. At the same time, the TSE, the Electoral Tribunal, is reportedly denying access to figures for the electoral roll, both in country and for citizens abroad.
Okay, those two things together. They raise questions, don't they? The registry thing highlights this tension between, like, government regulation and how grassroots volunteer groups actually work. Could stifle civic engagement, maybe?
Potentially.
And denying electoral data, that hits right at transparency, doesn't it? Access to that information is pretty fundamental for, trust in the democratic process.
True. But then also, from Diario El Mundo, there's apparently an initiative being pushed to facilitate setting up foundations and organizations for Salvadorans living abroad.
So empowering the diaspora in a different way. Interesting contrast again.
Yeah, this focus on the diaspora seems like a major theme. The editorial in Diario El Mundo talks about benefits to the diaspora and returnees being a positive path.
Makes sense.
Emphasizing attracting their investment, making sure if they return, it's sustainable, safe, productive, leveraging those global ties.
It points to a conscious national strategy, really trying to engage citizens everywhere, recognizing their potential.
But internally, politically, analysts cited in Diario El Salvador claim that the traditional parties, ARENA, FMLN, Vamos, they would basically stop changes if they regain influence.
Suggesting a pretty deep ideological divide then.
Seems like it. So what does that mean for the country's direction long term?
Well, connecting those dots, you have this outward-looking strategy towards the diaspora, but potentially significant internal political friction that could make implementing consistent long-term policy quite challenging. Raises questions about national unity and how you move forward when there are such different visions.
And looking even further outwards, El Salvador is obviously watching global events. Diario El Mundo notes the EU is prepared for all possibilities after new threats from Trump.
Geopolitical uncertainty writ large.
Yeah. And Trump's also in the news claiming 11 members of Venezuela's Tren de Aragua gang were eliminated, confirming a U.S. attack on a drug ship from Venezuela. These aren't happening in El Salvador, but they ripple outwards.
Absolutely. They underscore El Salvador's position in a really complex global landscape. These things affect international relations, security thinking, trade, migration. It all connects eventually.
And speaking of migration.
Exactly. La Prensa Grafica points out Trump reactivating asylum restrictions. That has a very direct impact on migrants, including many Salvadorans. So these aren't just distant headlines, they have real consequences for people.
It makes the international connections very clear. Okay, finally, let's explore something maybe a bit more uplifting. The culture, the innovation, the national pride that really seems to be surging through these sources.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in today's reports.
We've got lovely traditional events like the Dia de los Farolitos, the Day of the Little Lanterns exhibition in El Calvario Church. El Blog and El Diario de Hoy both covered it, explaining its Catholic origins, the light guiding Mary.
Beautiful. And it's fascinating how these deep-rooted traditions provide that strong sense of identity, community, even as the country is pushing into the future in other ways.
Right, because speaking of the future, Diario El Salvador reports the country is implementing its first AI law.
Its first AI law, that's quite proactive, a big step into the digital age.
And the Node Nation program, pioneering Bitcoin education, still positioning the country in that cutting-edge tech space.
It shows a clear ambition, doesn't it? To not just follow, but maybe lead in certain tech areas.
And here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Diario El Salvador is packed with interviews, artists, musicians, beauty queens, all making their mark, celebrating Salvadoran talent.
Yeah, showcasing it to the world.
Just these great quotes like, El Salvador tiene mucho talento, solo falta creer en su trabajo. El Salvador has talent, it just needs to believe in its work.
Powerful.
Or another, ahora todos quieren conocer más de El Salvador and I want to help show it. There's this real energy. Even religion gets a modern twist with Carlo Acutis, the first millennial saint, God's influencer, being canonized.
It all paints a picture of like renewed national pride, doesn't it? A real concerted effort to project a positive image globally through culture, arts, tech, innovation. And you see it in other ways too. Beauty queens saying El Salvador is growing a lot. Subway opening its 100th restaurant there. Even Decathlon, the sports store, coming to El Salvador, which La Prensa Grafica noted.
Small signs maybe, but they add up.
They do. They're all indicators of a dynamic society looking outwards, but also really celebrating its own roots and potential. It kind of makes you ask, how does this revitalized identity empower people to shape their country's story?
A great question. And of course, you can't talk national pride without sports. La Prensa Grafica, Diario El Salvador, they're buzzing about La Selecta, the national football team.
Big game coming up.
Against Suriname. And the coach, Belio Gomez, is quoted saying they need to do more than we did in Guatemala, setting expectations.
Or pressure's on.
And you see the public engagement announcements about free parking for the match, security plans all laid out. It clearly matters a lot.
Football often does.
So wrapping this all up.
Yeah.
What does it mean for you listening? We've covered a huge amount today, haven't we?
We really have.
From economic resilience tested by the environment to these deep social changes alongside security shifts, the political currents, and this really vibrant cultural and innovative energy. It's a picture of a nation truly in motion.
Yeah, navigating some serious challenges, no doubt, but also embracing opportunities.
Definitely.
And we saw how interconnected it all is. You know, how rain impacts sugar, which impacts livelihoods, how security strategies change communities but maybe don't solve poverty, how global politics touch diaspora lives, and how culture and tech are being used to build identity. Nothing exists in a vacuum.
That's perfectly put. It's all woven together. So as you think about all this, here's maybe a final thought to chew on. In this world where El Salvador faces both, real progress and stubborn challenges, how can it best use that unique mix it has tradition, this push for innovation, that resilient spirit to really define its own future and lead it?